It started with a sound that still haunts me to this day. We were deep in the woods, miles away from civilization. The fire was dying down, and the only thing we could hear was the crackling embers, until we heard her. A woman's cry, soft at first, then gut-wrenching, desperate. It sent a chill down my spine. It wasn't the sound of someone lost, it was the sound of someone in agony, someone pleading for help. We froze. No one spoke. Just the distant, shuddering sobs echoing through the trees. My friend Jason whispered, "Did you hear that?" Of course we all did, but none of us wanted to admit it. None of us wanted to be the first to say, "We should go check it out." Then the sound changed. The sobbing turned into a whisper. A breathy, shivering whisper that seemed to come from all directions at once. And then it stopped. Just vanished. The silence was worse than the crying. We crawled into our tents, but sleep was impossible. Every little sound outside made my heart race. Leaves crunching, twigs snapping, the feeling of being watched. At some point, exhaustion took over, and I must have drifted off. But then I woke up cold. Not just from the night air, something felt wrong. And then I realized the crying had started again. But this time it was right outside my tent. I couldn't breathe. The voice was so close, like someone crouching right next to me. "Help me, please, help me." I reached for the zipper, my fingers trembling. I had to look. I had to know. But just as I started to pull it down, a handprint appeared on the outside of my tent. Morning came, and with it a heavy silence. No birds, no wind, just an uneasy stillness that settled over the forest. We decided to look around to find where the crying had come from. We walked deeper into the woods, following the faintest trace of a path until we saw it. An old, abandoned well. The air around it felt thick, heavy, like the forest itself was holding its breath. Jason leaned over the edge, peering inside. "It's so dark," he muttered. I stepped closer, my stomach twisting. That's when I saw it. Right there in the dirt, half buried in the leaves. A bracelet. And it wasn't just any bracelet. It was old, rusted, and engraved with a name. A name that sent ice through my veins. Because I knew that name. It belonged to a girl who had gone missing 10 years ago. Then right as we turned to leave, we heard it, that same whisper. But this time it was coming from the well. "Help me." And then something moved down there. We ran. We didn't stop. We didn't speak. We just ran. I don't know how far we went, but when we finally reached the car, gasping for breath, Jason turned to me and said, "We should call someone." I nodded. But deep down I knew no one was going to believe us. We reported it. The police went to check, but they found nothing. No bracelet, no footprints, just an empty well. But here's the thing. I know we did, and sometimes late at night when everything is quiet, I swear I can still hear it, that whisper, that plea for help. And worst of all, I know she's still out there, waiting. I didn't see him that night. None of us did, but he was there, standing right behind us, watching, waiting. The morning after our camping trip, I checked the group photo on my phone, and my stomach dropped. Because right there in the shadows behind us stood a man with no face. If I had noticed him that night, maybe we would have made it out alive. It was supposed to be a weekend of fun. Just me, my best friend Mark, his girlfriend Sarah, and her brother Jake. We had picked a remote campsite deep in the woods, far from the city, where the only light came from the moon and our flickering campfire. The air was crisp, the trees swayed in the wind, and aside from the occasional rustling in the bushes, it was peaceful. From the moment we set up camp, I felt watched. It was that prickling sensation on the back of my neck, like unseen eyes were fixed on me from the trees. Mark teased me, saying I was just paranoid. "Dude, it's just the wilderness," he laughed. "Relax." But as the sun dipped below the trees, that feeling only got worse. Later that night, after roasting marshmallows and telling ghost stories, Sarah suggested we take a group picture. I held up my phone, switched to night mode, and snapped the shot. Click. The flash lit up our faces for a split second. Behind us, nothing but darkness, or so we thought. The next morning, while packing up, I pulled out my phone to look at the picture. At first I smiled. We all looked happy, carefree. Then my stomach turned to ice. Behind us in the shadows stood a figure, tall, unmoving, right there. But his face was missing. My breath hitched. My fingers trembled as I showed the others. Mark turned pale. "That's not possible," he muttered. "We were alone, weren't we?" Sarah let out a nervous laugh. "It has to be a glitch," she insisted, but I could see the fear in her eyes. Then Jake whispered, "Guys, what if he's still here?" We decided to pack up fast, but as we turned to grab our tents, Jake's tent was gone, not collapsed, not torn, just gone, like it was never there. Jake swore he set it up right next to mine, but the ground where it had been, completely undisturbed, like it was erased from existence. We ran like our lives depended on it. Branches whipped against my face, the underbrush snagging at my legs. Every few steps I glanced back, terrified of what I might see. Then I heard it, a whisper, low, distorted, right behind me. We reached the car, fumbling with the keys, throwing ourselves inside. As we sped down the dirt road, I risked one last glance out the window, and there, standing at the tree line, watching us leave, was the faceless man, still, unmoving, his head tilting ever so slightly, and then he raised his hand, as if waving goodbye. We never spoke of that night again. We deleted the photo, but sometimes, when I close my eyes, I can still see him, standing in the dark, waiting. If you like true scary stories like this, then please like, share, and subscribe. The car had stalled. We were stranded in the middle of nowhere, the night pressing in like a suffocating blanket. And then we saw them. Dozens of them. Bear traps, rusted, jagged, and freshly set, stretching across the road like a row of hungry mouths. I gripped the steering wheel, my pulse pounding in my ears. The hitchhiker's last words echoed in my mind. "Don't go any further." We should have listened. It started as a simple road trip. Just me, my girlfriend Hannah, and my two best friends, Tyler and Jess. We were heading back from a weekend at a cabin, driving through miles of empty road, with nothing but trees stretching endlessly on either side. It was the kind of road where you don't see another car for hours, the kind where the radio fizzles out into static, and the only sounds are your own breathing and the low hum of the engine. That's when we saw her, a woman standing at the edge of the road, half hidden in the fog. She wore an old hoodie, her jeans torn and muddy, and she held out one hand in a silent plea. Hannah nudged me. "Should we pick her up?" Tyler scoffed. Classic horror movie mistake. But something about her, she looked desperate and scared. I slowed the car. She climbed in, barely saying a word. I glanced at her in the rearview mirror. Her face was pale, eyes darting toward the road ahead like she was waiting for something. "Where are you headed?" I asked. She swallowed. "Just a mile ahead," she whispered. Something about the way she said it sent a chill down my spine. We reached the mile mark. The hitchhiker suddenly leaned forward. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Don't go any further." Then, without another word, she opened the door and stepped into the darkness. And just like that, she was gone. Silence filled the car. Then Jess snorted. "Well, that was creepy." Tyler laughed. "Come on, we are not seriously turning around, right?" "It's just a road." Hannah bit her lip. "I don't know." She seemed really scared. But against my better judgment, I kept driving. Minutes later, the car lurched. The engine coughed, sputtered, then died. I twisted the key. Nothing. Outside, the night seemed too quiet. No wind, no crickets, nothing. Then Hannah gasped, "Guys, look at the road." I turned my head slowly. The road ahead was covered in bear traps, rusty, sharp, freshly set, row after row, stretching as far as the fog allowed us to see. The hitchhiker, she had tried to warn us. My breath hitched. Then, through the fog, something moved. A shape, tall, hunched, waiting. It was watching us. The car wouldn't start. The fog grew thicker, and the figure in the mist took a step closer. We never should have ignored her warning. Now it's too late. So next time a stranger gives you a warning, will you listen? The first time I saw them, I thought they were just wolves. Golden eyes, glowing in the dark, watching me from the tree line. They never moved, never came closer. But on the third night, I saw them blink. And that's when I realized, wolves don't blink like that. I needed to get away. Work was suffocating, life was exhausting, and a week alone in my uncle's old hunting cabin sounded perfect. The place was deep in the woods, no neighbors, no Wi-Fi, barely any cell service. Just me, the trees, and silence. When I arrived, the air felt heavy. The forest loomed. The trees packed tightly together, their branches curling like grasping fingers. I shook off the feeling. It was just my imagination, right? That night, I sat by the fireplace, sipping whiskey, listening to the crackling wood. Then I saw them. Through the window, just beyond the tree line, two golden orbs, watching, unblinking. My heart skipped. Wolves, I told myself, just wolves, but they didn't move, didn't shift, didn't even flicker, they just stared. The second night they were back. Same place, same glowing eyes. I grabbed my flashlight, stepped onto the porch, and aimed the beam at them. Nothing. The second the light hit, the eyes vanished, but when I turned the flashlight off, they reappeared, in the exact same spot. The third night I watched them again. They stared back, and then they blinked. Not like an animal, not sideways, not naturally. They blinked vertically. I felt ice crawl up my spine. I wasn't looking at wolves. I was looking at something else. Something wrong. The next morning I found something that made my stomach drop. Long, deep scratches in the wood of the cabin door. 4 jagged lines. Not from claws, not from a knife. Something sharper, something deliberate. Like whatever was out there was trying to get in. That night I heard footsteps, slow, deliberate, crunching leaves just beyond the tree line. I held my breath, clutching the rifle my uncle left behind. Then, from the darkness, I heard something breathe. The last night I made a mistake. I stepped outside. The second my boots hit the porch, a clicking sound, a wet, unnatural clicking. Then the eyes rose. Not from the ground, not from an animal. They lifted, high into the air, too tall, too wrong. And then, out of the darkness, it crawled forward. I don't remember running inside. I don't remember locking the door, but I remember the sound, the scraping of something sharp against the walls, the slow, deliberate breathing, and then a whisper. Right outside the window, it knew my name. I left at dawn. Drove without stopping, never went back. But sometimes in the dead of night, when I close my eyes, I still see them, glowing in the dark, watching, waiting. Have you ever felt someone watching you, but when you looked, there was no one there? I have, and I know it wasn't human. I spent one night alone in the woods, just me, my tent, and the dark. But I was not alone, because all night, standing just outside my tent, was a shadow. It never moved, it never left. And when morning came, the trees around me were marked with symbols I couldn't understand. I was 15 when I took the solo survival challenge. A full night alone in the woods, no flashlight, no phone, just a tent, a knife, and my own instincts. The others were miles away, help if something went wrong. I was excited until the sun set. Then the woods changed. I crawled into my tent, zipped it up, and lay in the silent dark. But then, crunch, a footstep. Not an animal. A footstep, slow, deliberate. It stopped right outside my tent. I held my breath. My fingers tightened around my knife. I whispered, "Hello?" No answer. I stayed like that for what felt like hours. The shadow outside my tent never moved, never made a sound. I forced myself to sleep, telling myself it was a trick of the moonlight. But deep down, I knew something was watching me. When the first light of morning hit my tent, I bolted outside. There was nothing there. No footprints, no sign that anything had been standing there all night. But then I saw the trees, carved into the bark, circling my tent. Were symbols, shapes I didn't recognize. Some looked like eyes, others like twisted, grinning faces. I stumbled back, my breath caught in my throat. Someone had been here. I forced myself to check the ground. No footprints. Not mine. Not anyone else's. The dirt around my tent was smooth, but the carvings, they were real. I ran my fingers over them, deep, fresh. Who or what had done this had left no trace. I packed my gear fast. I wasn't staying another second, but as I turned to leave, I felt it again, that feeling. The weight of unseen eyes pressing down on me. A cold sweat broke across my skin, and then the wind whispered through the trees. Except it wasn't the wind. It sounded like breathing. Right behind me, I ran. I didn't stop until I saw the clearing where the others were waiting. But just before I stepped out of the forest, I made one mistake. I looked back, and there, standing between the trees, barely visible through the morning mist, was the shadow, watching, waiting. I never told the others what happened. I never went back to that forest. But sometimes, even now, when I'm alone at night, I see the shape of a shadow. Still, silent. So if you ever camp alone and you feel like something is watching you, don't look outside your tent because you might not be alone. The door was gone, not locked, not blocked, gone. The windows, bricked up, the entrance we came through last night, just a wall. Smooth, seamless wood where there should have been a way out. That's when I knew this wasn't an old abandoned cabin. It was a trap, and we had walked right into it. And the worst part, we weren't alone. It started as an ordinary hiking trip. Just me and my best friend, Daniel. We had planned for a 2-day trek through the woods, nothing extreme. Just fresh air, good company, and the thrill of getting away from the world. The deeper we hiked, the quieter the forest became. At first I thought it was peaceful, but after a while the silence felt unnatural. We had planned to camp, but as the sun set, we stumbled across something unexpected, a small wooden cabin. It looked old, weathered, abandoned. No lights, no signs of life. Just sitting there, deep in the woods, like it had been waiting for someone to find it. Daniel grinned. Looks like we just found our shelter for the night. I hesitated. Something about that place made my skin crawl. Inside, the cabin was exactly what you'd expect. Dusty, empty, and cold. A broken-down fireplace, old wooden chairs, a rickety table. There was even a single bed in the corner, covered in a moth-eaten blanket. But something was off. The air felt thick, heavy, as if the walls were holding in something they shouldn't. We set up our sleeping bags on the wooden floor, using our backpacks as pillows. But that night, I barely slept, because at some point, maybe around 3 a.m., I heard footsteps, not inside the cabin, outside, circling. The next morning, I woke up to Daniel shaking my shoulder. His face was pale. "The door," he whispered, "it's gone." I scrambled to my feet, heart pounding. He was right. Where the front door had been was now just a smooth, unbroken wooden wall. The windows, bricked up. The cabin had sealed itself shut. We pounded on the walls, screamed for help. No response. Then we heard it. A scratching sound, faint, slow, coming from inside the walls. Daniel gasped. "Look," I turned. My stomach dropped. Words, carved into the wood, began appearing on the walls, letter by letter. "Let me out." Daniel let out a shaky breath. "I don't think we're alone in here." And then we heard it, a whisper. Right behind us I turned, expecting to see nothing, but I was wrong. There, standing in the corner, was a third person. We never got out, or maybe we did, because every time I wake up, I'm back in that cabin, and the door is gone. So tell me, if you find an abandoned cabin in the woods, would you sleep inside? I still don't know what to believe. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe I imagined it. But when I pulled up to that house, she was gone. Just gone. And when the old woman opened the door, she told me something that chilled me to the bone. I've been driving trucks for years. Cross-country hauls, long nights, empty roads. It's nothing new. But some nights stick with you. Some nights you never forget. It was past midnight, a lonely stretch of highway cutting through the woods. The road ahead was empty. Just the hum of my engine and the glow of my headlights piercing the darkness. And then I saw her. She stood at the side of the road, barely visible in the dim light. A young woman, maybe early 20s, wearing a white dress that looked old-fashioned, like something out of another time. Her long hair was damp, clinging to her face. She didn't wave, didn't move. Just stood there, staring at me with eyes that seemed lost. I should have kept driving, but I didn't. I slowed to a stop, rolled down my window. "You need a ride?" I asked. She nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "Home." She climbed into the passenger seat, folding her hands in her lap. She smelled like rain and something else, something old, like forgotten places. I tried making small talk, but she barely responded, just stared out the window, her reflection pale against the glass. Then in a voice so soft I almost missed it, she whispered an address. As I drove, the cab felt wrong. It was cold, unnaturally cold, like the air had been sucked out of the space. I turned up the heat, but it did nothing. I glanced at her. She wasn't shivering. She wasn't even reacting, just staring ahead, expressionless. Something about that made my skin crawl. After what felt like an eternity, we reached the address she gave me. A small, weathered house at the edge of town. No lights, no sign of life. I turned to tell her we'd arrived, and the seat beside me was empty. She was gone. My pulse pounded. I stepped out, approached the house, and knocked. The door creaked open, revealing an elderly woman wrapped in a shawl. She looked at me with tired, sunken eyes. I hesitated. I just dropped off a young woman here. She gave me this address. Her face went pale. Her voice trembled. "That's impossible," she whispered. I felt a chill crawl down my spine. Then she said the words that still haunt me. "My daughter died on that road years ago." I wanted to argue, to say she must be mistaken, but then she turned, shuffling inside. She reached for a framed photograph on a dusty shelf and held it out to me. And there she was, the girl from my truck. Same white dress, same empty stare, only the photo was old, decades old, and at the bottom, written in faded ink, was a date, the day she died. I left that house in a daze, got back in my truck, drove away as fast as I could, but as I reached the highway, I passed the spot where I had picked her up, and I swear, for just a second, I saw her standing there again, watching, waiting. I don't pick up hitchhikers anymore. But if you ever find yourself driving down a lonely road at night, and you see a girl in white standing at the side of the road, keep driving, because some passengers never really leave. It spoke to me, in my own voice, from the basement. I was alone in that house. I know I was. But when I stepped inside, something was already waiting, and it knew my name. The worst part? I almost answered it. I was never afraid of empty houses. I was a real estate agent. It was my job to walk through them, inspect them, make them feel lived in. But this house felt different the moment I stepped onto the porch. It was old, but not run down. The windows weren't shattered, the door wasn't broken, but the silence, it felt unnatural, like the house was waiting. I pushed open the door. It creaked, but not loudly, more like a sigh. Inside, the air was stale, dust floating in the dim light filtering through old curtains. The walls were lined with peeling wallpaper, but the furniture was still there, like someone left in a hurry and never came back. Then I heard it, a voice, my own voice, whispering. From the basement, I froze. At first, I thought I imagined it. Maybe the wind, maybe the house settling. But then I heard it again, a whisper, soft, familiar, calling my name. Emily. I took a step back. It wasn't echoing through the house. It wasn't distant. It was right behind that door. I turned away. I wasn't going down there. Instead, I pulled out my phone and checked the listing history. That's when I noticed something strange. Every owner left within a month. Some vanished without a trace. And the last recorded entry? Just 3 words. Do not answer. I felt a chill run down my spine. Then, bang. The basement door slammed shut. I didn't touch it. And then the voice changed. It wasn't just calling my name anymore. It was mocking me, repeating everything I said just a second too late. I turned to leave, but the front door, it wouldn't budge. No lock, no key, just stuck. Then I heard footsteps, slow, deliberate, coming up the basement stairs. I turned around slowly, and then I saw it. Something standing at the top of the stairs. It looked like me. Same hair, same clothes, but its eyes were wrong. And when it smiled, it had too many teeth. Then it spoke, but it wasn't my voice anymore. It was everyone who had ever lived here, all at once. I don't remember running. I don't remember the door opening. I just remember the cold air hitting my face as I stumbled into the street. The house stood silent behind me, waiting, watching, and then I heard my voice right behind me. Emily? I never went back. I quit my job, but sometimes I hear it, not from the house, from my own reflection. I swear I was alone, but in the dead of night, the walls whispered my name. At first I thought it was the old pipes, the wind, my imagination, but I was wrong, because when I tore open the drywall, I found something no one was supposed to see. Children's drawings, faded, disturbing, and scratched into the wood, over and over, 2 words, help me. It was supposed to be a fresh start, a new city, a cheap apartment, just me and my work. The place was old, faded wallpaper, creaky floors, but I didn't mind. The landlord said it had character. That should have been my first warning. That first night, as I lay in bed, I heard it. A whisper. Faint, muffled, coming from inside the walls. I told myself it was just the pipes. Old buildings settle at night, but deep down, something about it felt wrong. Each night, the whispers grew louder. At first, it was just faint murmuring, like a conversation I couldn't quite hear. But by the 3rd night, they were closer, clearer. And then I heard my name, soft, dragged out, like someone was calling me from the other side of the wall. That night I didn't sleep. Around 3 a.m. I heard scratching, slow, methodical, like fingernails dragging against wood, coming from the same spot in the wall. Something was inside. I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed a hammer and started tearing into the drywall. Dust filled the air. The room reeked of mildew and something rotten. Then I saw it, a hidden crawl space. And inside, drawings, dozens of them, children's drawings. I picked up the first drawing, a little house with dark figures standing outside. The next one, a child sitting in a corner crying. And the last one, a pair of eyes staring out from the walls. And then at the very bottom of the crawl space, I saw it. 2 words scratched deep into the wood. Help me. I felt something, a shift in the air, a presence. Then, deep inside the crawl space, in the blackness beyond the drawings, I saw a movement, a shape, small, hunched, watching me. I stumbled back, my breath frozen in my chest. Then right next to my ear, I heard it, a whisper, soft, cold. Help me. I ran. I grabbed my keys, my phone. I didn't even close the door behind me. The next morning, the building caught fire. They said it was faulty wiring, an accident, but I know the truth. The whispers are gone now. But sometimes in the silence of the night, I swear I can still hear them, calling my name. Some places hold secrets, some walls remember, and some whispers never fade. The phone shouldn't have been there. Not in that forest, not 200 miles from where he vanished. and yet there it was. But it wasn't just the phone that haunted me. It was what was inside it. One last recording, heavy breathing, distant laughter, and then his voice, low, shaking, terrified. "It's coming back. Don't let it take you too." I wish I had never pressed play. His name was Daniel Reese, an experienced hiker, strong, smart, the kind of guy who didn't get lost. He set off into the mountains alone, planning a 3-day trip. He never came back. They searched for weeks, helicopters, search dogs, hundreds of volunteers combing every trail, every ravine. No trace of him. It was like he vanished into thin air. A year passed. His family had given up hope. Then one day, a park ranger, 200 miles away, was clearing a restricted area of a dense forest when he found something lying in the underbrush. Daniel's phone, fully intact, battery dead, no sign of damage, and yet it hadn't been there before. They gave the phone to me. I was Daniel's best friend, and maybe, just maybe, I could find something inside it. I charged it. The screen flickered on. There were no messages, no photos, no calls, except for one, a single voice memo, recorded 3 days after he disappeared. I pressed play. At first, nothing. Then heavy, panicked breathing, the sound of twigs snapping, leaves crunching, then laughter, distant, inhuman. Daniel's voice, barely a whisper. "It's coming back, don't let it take you too." A shrill static screech, then silence. I became obsessed. How did the phone travel 200 miles? What was he running from? I traced his route, studied missing person reports, and then I found something. A pattern. Every few years, hikers vanished in the same area. No bodies, no evidence, just gone. And then sometimes their things, their phones, their backpacks would show up somewhere else, as if whatever took them wanted us to know. I had to see it for myself. I packed my gear and drove to the last place Daniel was seen. The forest was silent, too silent. No birds, no wind, just stillness. And then that night, I heard it. Laughter. I ran. My flashlight flickered. My breath came in ragged gasps. The laughter grew closer. Shapes moved in the trees, not animals, not human. Then, ahead of me, Daniel's backpack, lying in the dirt, untouched. I grabbed it and ran for my life. I made it back, barely. Inside the backpack, I found Daniel's journal. His last entry read, "It doesn't kill you, it moves you, it takes you somewhere else, and when it's done playing, it sends a warning." I burned the backpack, but I still hear it at night, the laughter, and I know it's coming back. If you ever find a missing hiker's phone, don't turn it on, and whatever you do, don't press play.